The logistics of Operation Goro Line were a masterwork of maritime deception. North Korea employed a fleet of aging cargo ships that were experts at disappearing. These vessels would routinely switch off their automatic identification system transponders, a practice that is a major violation of international maritime law. By going dark, they effectively vanished from public tracking systems, allowing them to sail undetected through the Sea of Japan. These ghost ships would only switch their transponders back on when they were close to their destination, creating a digital black hole in their journey that made their true origin impossible to verify through conventional means. Once these ships arrived at secluded piers in the Russian Far East, often under the cover of night, the next phase of the deception began. The weapons were offloaded and immediately transferred to trains belonging to a subsidiary of the Russian State Railway. The cargo was then disguised under false manifests. A shipment of 122mm artillery shells might be labeled as mining equipment, while ballistic missiles were logged as industrial piping. This paperwork laundering was designed to fool any low-level inspectors or auditors, creating a plausible, if flimsy, cover story that would hold up just long enough for the weapons to be integrated into Russia's vast military supply chain. The impact of North Korea's secret arms shipments on the war in Ukraine was immediate and honestly, devastating. By late 2024, the Russian military was facing a severe shell hunger. Its own production just couldn't keep up with the ferocious pace of its artillery barrages, and its forces were at risk of being outgunned by Ukrainian troops supplied with Western munitions. The arrival of millions of North Korean shells and rockets changed that equation overnight. Suddenly, Russian artillery units that had been rationing their ammunition were able to resume their relentless, scorched-earth tactics, pounding Ukrainian positions and cities around the clock. This influx of firepower allowed Russia to stabilize its front lines, and even launch renewed offensive operations in key sectors like the Donbass. Military analysts noted a dramatic spike in the intensity of Russian artillery fire, starting in early 2025, a spike that directly correlated with the timeline of North Korean shipments. These were not precision weapons, they were instruments of blunt force. The sheer volume of fire was designed to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses, suppress troop movements, and inflict maximum damage on infrastructure. The North Korean arsenal didn't make the Russian army smarter or more effective, but it made it much, much louder and more destructive. The moment Ukraine's report went public, the diplomatic world erupted. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting within 48 hours. The scene was tense, with the US and European ambassadors presenting the Ukrainian evidence, satellite photos, shipping logs, and financial traces for the entire world to see. The Russian ambassador predictably dismissed the report as a collection of Western-fabricated lies, while the Chinese representative called for calm and de-escalation. But the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. The meeting ended with a chorus of condemnation aimed squarely at Moscow and Pyongyang. The economic response was swift and severe. The United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom immediately announced a new, punishing round of sanctions. This time, they didn't just target Russian and North Korean officials, they went after the entire network. The shell companies identified in the report were blacklisted, their assets frozen. The banks and crypto exchanges suspected of facilitating the payments were hit with heavy fines and cut off from the global financial system. Even the specific ships, named as part of the Ghost Fleet, were sanctioned, making it nearly impossible for them to get insurance or dock at any reputable port in the world. For Russia and North Korea, the exposure of Operation Goro Line was a catastrophic blow. While the arms shipments had provided a temporary battlefield advantage, the public revelation came at an immense political and economic cost. For Russia, it was a moment of profound humiliation. A nation that prided itself on its military might had been caught red-handed, forced to rely on a pariah state for basic ammunition. The exposure shattered its image as a self-sufficient superpower and revealed a deep vulnerability in its war machine. Diplomatically, it made Russia an even greater outcast, further cementing its status as a rogue actor on the world stage. For North Korea, the consequences were equally severe. The regime had gambled that the secrecy of the deal would protect it from repercussions. It lost that bet. The new wave of sanctions specifically targeted the financial channels and front companies that Pyongyang relied on to evade existing restrictions. This choked off a vital source of illicit income, making it harder for the regime to fund its weapons programs and import luxury goods for its elite. The exposure also put a target on its back, inviting intensified surveillance from Western intelligence agencies, who would now be watching every ship and every bank transfer with renewed focus. The saga of Operation Goro Line is more than just a story about an arms deal. It is a defining lesson in the nature of 21st century warfare. It demonstrates that in an age of digital connectivity, information is not just a tool, it is a weapon system in its own right. Ukraine, outmatched in conventional military terms, leveraged intelligence to score a strategic victory that no amount of artillery could have achieved. By exposing the truth, they didn't just disrupt the supply line, they reshaped the entire political and diplomatic battlefield. They proved that a well-crafted dossier can be as powerful as a missile strike. This new form of warfare is fought on servers and satellites, in encrypted chat rooms, and on the blockchain. Ukraine's victory was not won by soldiers, but by a team of brilliant analysts, hackers, and intelligence officers who knew how to follow a digital trail. They weaponized transparency, turning the secrecy that Russia and North Korea relied on against them. In doing so, they provided a blueprint for how smaller nations can counter larger, more powerful adversaries. It is a model of asymmetric warfare where the goal is not to defeat the enemy's army, but to dismantle the enemy's narrative and expose their weaknesses to the world.